New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome. A warm welcome to you wherever you are. This is Growing Edge Live, and I am Dr. Allie Benjamin. It is my great joy to be here today, and I trust that this show, this episode, will support you right where you are. We're going to be talking about grief and loss, bereavement, and healing. So here at the Growing Edge, we have conversations with soul-centered individuals that are channeling their time, energy, creativity, talent, resources, their love, their light. They're channeling all of that into doing good work in the world. And today we have a special guest who is a spiritual practitioner. He is an entrepreneur. He is a hospice chaplain, and he is the father of my children, the grandfather of my grandchildren, and my own beloved husband. And so please join me in welcoming Michael Benjamin to Growing Edge Live. Hello, Michael.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm fabulous. We just celebrated Mother's Day yesterday. And so I'm still flying high from being surrounded by such love and such fun and joy, and my family is truly a blessing, and thank you for making yesterday such a delight.
Wow, my pleasure. It was great. We had a fun day, and I know, there's, because the restaurant of choice was busy beyond, right? And we had an hour and a half to hang out in the parking lot with many others as well, waiting to get into this place. And I think it was worth it. It was fun. I think everybody ended up having a good time. So.
Yeah, I agree. It was awesome. So we have an interesting topic today, which is grief and loss. And I know this has been up for you and me. We have a couple of guest appearances this month in talking about grief and loss and bereavement. And so I thought today, for our show, we might want to share a little bit about what we know, and I think these times are so challenging for so many people, with the wars going on in the world, the division, the divisiveness, the inequalities, and just daily living can be so challenging for so many. And as you and I both know, people aren't really supported in their grief. We especially here in the West, we're encouraged to get back right into the swing of things when we've experienced struggles, challenges, losses, and many people don't even give themselves time to sit with their feelings, to process through their grief, and to be with their loved ones and find distractions and ways of denying it or burying it or avoiding it in some way. Yeah. And so I have a quote here I found from L.R. Nost. She's an author. She works with children and families. And she writes, "Life is amazing, and then it's awful, and then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and awful is ordinary, mundane, and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living, heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it is breathtakingly beautiful. So what's your response to that? It's amazing, then it's awful, then it's amazing again. And in between those two things is ordinary, mundane, and routine. But we all go through this. We all go through the ups and downs, the highs and lows. And I know that you, being a science of mind practitioner, a hospice chaplain, and someone that's experienced their own loss. You lost both parents in the last couple of years. We lost our son. I can't believe it's coming up 6 years in July. And there's just been so many of our friends have experienced similar things. And so what's your thoughts about it's amazing, it's awful, it's amazing again, and then in between all of that is ordinary and routine?
Well, right off the cuff, I want to say what a gift to have that realization, right? Just that awareness, I think, it was discovered through sort of like as an answer to a prayer, like just having the awareness that this, I'll use the term in, the quantum soup, if you will. I also sometimes have a personal awareness that I call it the carnage, like the meaning that there's this crust of sort of this evolving, experience through the appearance of physical, meaning that the human journey. And I think it's a real gift to be of the sort of that view of it's both and it's all of it, right? It's highs and it's lows. And in fact, as we've heard through our teachings over the years, it takes the lows to know the highs. Like they are serving they are serving a purpose. They meaning the experiences that might somehow bring us into that lower feel, that lower vibe, that out of control feeling, which ultimately tends to evoke what we would label as grief, right? We're grieving some sort of the way it once was in our life, right? And of course, we tend to utilize grief for the special experiences like the loss of a loved one. But I also encourage us to keep open to, we grieve change, right? We grieve change in our life, like a business that used to thrive that no longer is, that's needing to reinvent itself or reemerge or transform into something new. Specifically, entrepreneurs deal with this all the time because we're not necessarily, working a government career job for a 40-year period and then retiring with that federal pension, right? So when in the creative process and living an entrepreneurial life, there's times that we've done extremely well. There's times that we've lost things. There's times that we re-emerge as something new. And all of that can evoke that feeling of loss or grief. And so, that's my answer to you, Al. I think that it's really a gift to have that awareness.
Yeah. So maybe let's talk a little bit about, you're a very positive, happy person, and we've been married coming up the end of this month, 27 years. And for the most part, you've always had a sunny disposition. You've always looked to the bright side of things. The glass is half full, not half empty. And so how did you, as someone that really presents that happy, joyful, helpful, supportive persona, you present in that way, but you're also someone that, based on your work as a practitioner, spiritual practitioner, and a hospice chaplain, you've also had the opportunity to sit with people during their darkest hours. And you've also experienced loss and grief based on losing your parents in the last few years. So how have you experienced grief? Can you reconcile this happy, joyful, positive outlook with the feelings of loss and sadness? How does that show up for someone like you?
Well, I've come, I think we went through the season of grief. I don't think it was a once and for all. I don't think we're done. But I mean, meaning, when Adam left, I mean, that was like a shattering, thrust upon us, experience. And also, Mom was already well on her way, and my father wasn't well, and in 4 or 5 years before that, clear day cap, our experience in business and so forth. And so I think it was really an opportunity to not always be that positive. You speak of me being, more bright, sunny, high vibe days than not. Having said that, what our journey into this thing called grief, consciously doing it, what it really allowed for me was to grow closer with my loved ones, and the expansiveness into the infinite realm by sitting in this grief, by really sitting with it and feeling it. Yeah, you also mentioned, sometimes, as a mental science practitioner, we can be guilty of moving into truth and into reality, or ultimately staying positive, if you will. But I also think there's some tremendous positivity in sitting with our situation, and or if it's a loved one, in our example that you're giving, like it was our loved ones, right? Actually sitting with them and communing with them and speaking with them, like through an energy, or I do spoken word, but I also do energy, like heart breath and heart connection, and I do tapping, and I do a lot of things that I do to become vibrationally aware of what I'm doing now. And
so are you saying like communicating with your loved ones, even though they're not here? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, where's here, right? So in the energetic realm, there really is an ever-present presence, and they are here. Like, if we're still struggling with what is eternal and infinite life, then this may be a debatable conversation for you. But if you know and believe that there's a power and a presence that is eternal and infinite, I don't care how you name it or what language you speak. If that's your belief system, then you really get to jump into having a real-time, energetic, vibratory connection or communion with your loved one who has not, who has left the physical, but isn't in a dark place forever. Like there's a vibration that they are, and that you can actually connect with them in the now. And the reason why you were connected in life, if it's your parent, right? If it's your mother, she lived so that I may live. And she actually gave birth to me, you know, and that was sort of like the reason why that all happened was so that would happen. And we are definitely connected in this space at this place right now. And in that, the art of grieving, the gift of grieving, is the closeness, and that feeling of closeness that you're longing for. That feeling of closeness that you're longing for is already there if you just allow yourself to feel it and to experience that closeness right now.
Yeah, I think we get distracted by the thoughts that we're having, and the fact that those loved ones are no longer with us in the physical. We can get really sort of trapped in the cycle of thinking and feeling sad and feeling disconnected. But what I'm hearing you saying is that if you have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the heart to receive, you can still experience the full vibrancy of that loved one right here in your heart, even though they're not here with us on the physical dimension. There's, if you stay with it, and you and I have both done breath work, and we talk through, we took a whole year to live in our camper van and travel around the country to really feel our feelings. You mentioned, positivity, in the new thought field or the new thought movement. There can be this toxic positivity or denial of our feelings. And I feel that I'm reading a book called Conscious Grieving, and we can choose to do it differently. We can choose to not just stay in this, thought, feeling, surface level processing our grief, but we can do it with a bit more intention, a bit more presence, and tune into that wisdom within us that will inevitably guide us to a new relationship with our loved one, a deeper, more profound relationship. Because yes, we are a body and a mind, but we're also this ineffable spiritual spark, this kind of unknowable life force, creative energy. And when we bring the body and the mind into alignment with that mystical, mysterious life force energy within us, then I think we're opening ourselves up. Maybe this is all part of spiritual awakening. We're opening ourselves up to go deeper. And in that, because I've heard you say grief can be good or grief can feel good. I think that's the feel good in the grief. It's not, something that we would choose. It's a way of working through our feelings and our thoughts around our loved ones, especially when we're in bereavement, we've newly lost someone. There can be a whole new dimension that can be very comforting, whether it's through prayer or meditation or being in nature, mindfulness. We can tune in to that ineffable or God or the universe and develop an even deeper, more spiritual relationship with our loved one that's no longer in form. So you've spent countless hours with families, and typically what I remember when you were being a hospice chaplain, you were the spiritual caregiver or the support for families that weren't necessarily of a particular faith. So you would be invited into the home of someone that was close to death in hospice, and not just to support the patient, but to support the entire family. And because these people didn't have a faith tradition necessarily practicing, maybe they did when they were younger, but aren't currently, so they weren't calling their priest or their rabbi, they were calling on the hospice chaplain. What did you see as far as people in struggle with coming to terms with what was happening? And it's so odd that all of us know that there's an end time to this physical incarnation, but it seems to come as a shock to so many, especially if a parent's passing. So how can you share a little bit of how people go from being distraught, confused, uncertain about what's happening, to when you come on the scene and you share some things with them to help them find peace in the process? Can you talk a little bit to that?
Sure. Yeah. I was really feeling into that as you were setting that. Coming into a situation, firstly, shock. I mean, shock is not optional. It's just something that happens. I think the gift that folks were able to realize with me, or vice versa, the gift I realized with them, was through my awareness, they could borrow faith. Like, there's a particular love language that happens through the awareness. What awareness? For me, I see the infinite and divine presence as them and as their loved one. And that we all know that we share this in common. And we all know that in some ways there's an awareness that we are one, that we are brothers and sisters, that we're spiritual beings having a unique experience, but we are connected through that oneness. So there's that for me, like, prior to even going in to meet people, either for the first time or really any time, that there was an opening or an expansiveness that I would go through, or an experience, before I walked in. And when I walk in, immediately I would feel people were, through my awareness, through my seeing who they are and honoring that namaste, if you will, that divine in me honors the divine in you, that awareness that there's an evolution taking place here, and that everybody's experiencing, this, and some are experiencing loss, some are experiencing freedom. And it's all happening in the here and now. So for me, I think it was really a strong back and a soft front. And having a soft front, having that open heart, that unconditional love for the divine process unfolding here. We were all in some way experienced a peace. And I commonly would hear people say, boy, I sure felt relief, with you there, or I've never experienced anything like that before. That was amazing. Or, to me, it was like, I didn't really do anything. It was more just, there's something in me that knows how to do it.
Yeah, what I think I'm hearing you saying is there's a particular witnessing that's happening when we show up to tend to someone, or they come to us for a session, and they're they've lost someone, or they're struggling with a particular loss of transition or something, a diagnosis. And as spiritual practitioners, as counselors, when we sit with another, we're bearing witness, we're holding a space. We bring with us this energy, this understanding and awareness of the eternality of life. And I think that that is invisibly communicated. Like there's something, they pick up on that awareness, that energy, that consciousness that gives them a sense of peace.
Yeah.
In the moment, maybe, but it's something that they can circle back to time and time again, as they will be, overwhelmed with the feelings and the emotions of if their loved one's in hospice, with someone that's inevitably going to make their transition. And then once they do make their transition, then there's that great loss of their physical presence. And so as a hospice chaplain or a minister or a counselor or a practitioner, when we're able to have that privilege, that opportunity to sit with someone, hold space with them, meditate or pray with them, we're actually a safe place. We're holding the space. We're bearing witness. And I think it's uncommon in the everyday world that we find someone to be with that has that can bring that can create that space. Because so many people are uncomfortable talking about loss and grief, and so many people are uncomfortable being with people that have just lost someone, that are in grief. And so there's sort of a, as we've experienced, people maybe don't make that phone call. They don't show up because it's hard to be with people that are in that emotional place. And so,
it's interesting because as we know, the world's a big place and traditions do things differently, and then historically versus present day, but all that, right? But not every community experiences the same thing around a loss of a loved one. But by and large, I would say the bulk of the populace sits with it in some way, be it in circle, be it in community, or like you and I had dear friends that brought us into Sweat Lodge, and we sat, literally in dark space in the womb, and so forth. So we have a decent feel for how Indigenous people do it. We in the West probably are more guilty of flashy object syndromes around here, and so we run around, tend to fill things up from the outside in. What do we need? What do we need? And we're filling what we believe we need. Where a big part of the community, our global community, is already aware that we already have everything we need, and just being able to sit in the quiet with what is kind of honoring that, like honoring fill in the blank, honoring the life of our loved one and all that meant. The awareness that, I go to my parents and the family constellation work, the giving word and awareness to the fact that they lived so that I may live. Like, that is a highly onerous experience to realize, that it wasn't all the billions of bits and pieces and business around this human experience. It was pretty simple. like they lived so that I could live, and that they are rooting me on, and they always have in some way, whether I kind of was aware of that or not, because sometimes I suffer with, tough fatherhood syndrome where my dad was tough, right? But having said that, there is a part of me today that knows that he was always wanting the best for me and that he was always rooting me on.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come right back after this short break.
Okay.
The New Thought Men's community proudly presents New Thought Men's Summit, Foundations, an online conference, September 22nd through 27th. Register today at www.newthoughtmens.community, featuring 22 New Thought speakers, ministers, and visionaries, sharing their wisdom of modern spiritual masculinity. New Thought Men's community, empowering wholeness, centered in spiritual living.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, thesatyacenter, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back. And I wanted to share a little bit for those that are supporting another that's going through a hard time. I wanted to share ways that we can support someone in grief. It really requires empathy, patience, and understanding. And here are some ways that you can support your loved one as they go through their grieving process. Number one, listen. Let them express their feelings without judgment. Sometimes just being there and listening can be incredibly comforting. And that's what we just talked to Michael about as he really held space for family members of those that are in hospice. Number two, validate their feelings. acknowledge their pain and let them know it's okay to feel however they're feeling. I think that's really important. I think many of us are guilty of trying to not validate their feelings, but distract them by, suggesting, let's go do this or let's do this. And while that's important too, I think to really validate the other's feelings, also to offer practical help, offer to run errands, cook meals, or help with chores to alleviate some of their burdens. I think that can be incredibly helpful too. And I know that's another thing that hospice does. It helps, they bring people in to do some cooking or cleaning or errand running. And so if you're wondering about hospice, it's more than just end of life care. There's practical help too. Then there's respect their grieving process, understand that everyone grieves differently and at their own pace. Allow them to grieve in their own way without pressure or expectations. I think that's another beautiful thing to understand, is that grieving doesn't look the same for everyone. We all do it a bit differently, and we all have our own pace, and it doesn't always end. It's something typically that we carry with us. As I just experienced yesterday, we woke up in the morning and we were giving thanks. I had the first experience of being a mother with my son Adam that passed away. And so Michael and I were reminiscing and talking about that. And all of a sudden I felt this extreme wave of grief, and I started sobbing. And those tears, it's been 6 years now, they don't come all the time, but occasionally they do. And there was maybe a whole minute of me not speaking, just really having this deep ache and pain for the loss of my first child. And so when we can respect others' grieving process and the time it takes, and to bear witness as it happens. Another thing is to be patient. Grief can be a long and unpredictable process. Be patient and understanding as they navigate through their emotions. Then check in regularly. This is something that I think is really important, because it doesn't have to be hard or difficult. Just merely checking in, keep in touch with them, even if it's a brief text, or to let them know that you're thinking about them. That's really helpful, because many people, I think that the person that's going through grief has support from their family. And so they feel, well, I don't want to bother them. And so they stay distant. And I think just a brief check-in can be very, very helpful. And then encourage professional help if needed. If you're concerned about their well-being, or if their grief seems overwhelming, encourage them to seek support from a therapist or counselor. And that is true. I know many of my clients, I'm their spiritual counselor, but when they have tougher emotional, mental, psychological issues, that they get tremendous help and guidance from seeing a therapist. And then finally, celebrate the life of the person they lost. Share fond memories, stories, and photos of their loved one to honor their memory and provide comfort. Remember, the most important thing is to show your support and let them know they're not alone during this difficult time. So that's some wisdom for those that are maybe grieving, or those that are supporting someone through the grieving process. So I want to move on to talking a little bit about, I know for me, when anyone near to me passed, I always had this feeling or wanting to know, does their consciousness continue? Are they still here with us? Where did they go? And so I want to have you share a couple of stories, so that maybe people will get the idea that consciousness continues. It doesn't end with the death of the physical body. So these obviously are our thoughts and beliefs, and everyone comes to their own in their own time. But I think sharing some of your encounters with people that have passed over might be helpful for those that are newly bereaved and missing their loved one. So what can you tell us, Michael, about the continuation of consciousness and how us in the physical can maybe communicate, connect with those that have passed over?
Yes, I think I feel the spiritual occurrence that's happening here when, as a spiritual care hospice chaplain, I really, of course, I was a chaplain and I am a chaplain, but having said that, I prefer spiritual care, because when I even say that word, my heart opens up, right? Like, I am absolutely in service to that. And that spiritual care awareness is where the communication, the communion that you're asking about, like, this is where that happens. Like, the spiritual occurrence is not an extraordinary woo type experience. The spiritual occurrence is ordinary and usual. And it's not for a chosen one, if you will. I'm not a chosen one. We're all the chosen ones, right? So the point is that for those that have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, and we all do. And so the ability to experience a closeness and have communication or communion with our loved one is a natural state. And of course, it's like going to the gym or anything else. You want to practice it. For me, it's meditation, it's awareness, it's expanded awareness. It's coming into the present moment now with Adam or with my mom or with, and you made reference to my patients. I really feel that this coming together in the last chapter, the epic chapter, if you will, the transitioning chapter of one of my loved ones' experiences, and being invited to come into that was a gift. It wasn't something that I preferred. I like the way you said that earlier. It's not what we prefer to have people leave, but the fact that they are leaving is not optional. And getting the call to come in at the last moment is like to come in and really connect in that awareness with another human. I wanted to insert, for those that are listening, there's something amazingly expansive about locking eyes with your loved one. Not both eyes at the same time, but like a left eye, and really communing, looking into their eyes in the awareness that there's a spiritual occurrence happening here. There's something pretty expansive about doing that. And if you have that time to sit with your loved one, do engage, like eye gaze, like look deep into their soul and know that the divine as them is looking back at you even while they're leaving. And there's this it's almost a marriage that's occurring. It's a commingling, right? Commingling in our oneness and that connection. So as I am aware of the gift of being involved with my loved ones, that friends that I met, that we became fast friends and we really had this deep connection, like being able to connect to that ascended and a nature of them, and have a real-time connection with them even as we speak is available to all of us. It's not an it's extraordinary to have that communion, but it's.
So did you have that with any of your patients where they were, we've heard, many of us have heard of, people communing with their loved ones before they leave. They will say to those that are around them, supporting them, caring for them, oh, my brother's here, or my sister's here, or someone that's already passed over is here, and they'll be talking to them in real time. Can you share any experiences with that occurrence?
Yes, and it does happen, but I want you to know that the extraordinary experience is experiencing it for yourself. It's something that you can do.
That's
but
really helpful.
I needed evidence, to be honest. I wanted to know, and I had a conscious dying with multiple people, and we had conversations and agreements and so forth. Eat for as much fun as anything else, but one example I give is specifically with a guy that I know. We had an agreement that certain things were going to unfold in a certain way, and that the purpose was for demonstrating to both of us that we know for sure. There was an agreement early on in the process, because we spent almost 2 years together leading up to his transition, where we went through this process of nobody knows for sure. But then we actually transitioned to, well, if we had this experience, then we would know for sure. And in our story, it played out exactly as we spoke of, like even to the point that in the hours leading up to his transition, to his taking his final breath, he was spending a lot of time somewhere else, and then he was coming back and telling me about it, and going somewhere else, and then coming back and telling me about it. And the final words that he said was, "Remember the hummingbird." And he said it very clear, without doubt. Like, there was no doubt.
So this is that part of the agreement you had, that he would visit you as a hummingbird?
Yeah. And so because we went from his first position was, I don't know if I believe in infinite life. Like, I'm not for sure on that, right? Then we had lots of 2 years worth of book reading and sharing and conversing. Then we got to this agreement that there more than likely is an infinite experience, that there is this spiritual thing, and we agree on it. But boy, if we could come back as anything, he wanted to come back as a hummingbird. He was over 100, by the way. In the last 20 years, he was not ambulatory. So he had a long time to sit and contemplate life. And the hummingbird was something that he became extraordinarily close with. And he cared for a number of them. And they came and they were friends, and we talked about it and we connected with it. And he opened up and confided that he wanted to come back as a hummingbird. And I had this agreement with him that if that was possible, and I believe as a person of faith that it is possible, that you will have the opportunity to come back and present and communicate with me at a time that it would be beyond like ordinary, that it would be at a moment that I would not miss it. And so I had this experience with him 4 or 5 days after he passed away, in the middle of a blizzard. He presented where hummingbirds aren't and haven't been for months because they migrate. And it was not hummingbird season, but I had this experience with the hummingbird early in the morning, taking a drink off our feeder and coming and making eye contact directly with me. That it was just this absolutely like unmistakable moment that he was in fact waving the flag that here I am. You can go on knowing beyond all doubt, knowing for sure that there's many iterations to this experience. Yeah.
That's really a sweet memory. And given the length of your relationship, a couple of years, and knowing that you had many, many conversations, and I can really feel it in my body, the preciousness. It's not just it's proof, it's a sign. It's more of this continuing story. You met him, you went into his home for the first time at, and 2 years later he makes his transition, and then comes back as communicates to you through Hummingbird. That's a beautiful story. That's a beautiful experience that wouldn't have happened for him or you had you not been present, been willing to create that space to have those deep conversations. And I think that's what makes life so precious, when we take time for one another. And it doesn't have to be at the end of life. It doesn't have to be when you're struggling with something.
Yeah.
That's what I think I've learned most profoundly through the loss of the people that we've lost, is that don't wait to have those real time connections with people. Don't wait. And it doesn't all have to be deep, and it can be fun and light, but don't wait to make those connections with the people that you want to make connections with, your family, your friends, strangers, because at the end of life, what are we thinking about? We're thinking, I'm imagining, and you can shed some light on this, I'm imagining that we're not thinking of the things that we missed out on. We're thinking of those special memories, those connections that we had, the things that brought us joy. So why not go about creating more of that intentionally, consciously living, so that when we make our transition, or our loved ones, then we've got that deep well of memory, of experience, of delight.
Well, and it has been explained to us that the experience of our loved one is enriched and experienced more fully connecting with us now. Like it doesn't take from their experience. They're not in like this expansive nature of the infinite only experiences more and more and never less. So by me having a moment with my mother to tell her how much I love her and how thankful I am that she's a part of my experience, that I carry her with me every day, and that I'm feeling connected to you now, that I'm feeling close with you now in this moment. I want you to know that I'm proud to be your son, that I'm thankful that you had me, that you did the best that you could with everything that you had to work with, and it was enough. And that I do miss you, but don't worry, because I'm finding my way, that I'm having this closeness, that I'm having this experience with her in this moment is not taking from her experience. It is adding to her experience. And if I was grieving differently, where it was like, where I was just in the awareness of loss, that it's absent now, that there's a gap between us, and that maybe someday we'll be reunited again. Our loved ones are saying, don't wait, I'm here now. Feel my connection now. Our connection is more than physical. Our connection is the non-physical, the metaphysical, the more than physical. It is a spiritual connection. And that spiritual connection is experienced real time whenever you want it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I want to end with talking a little bit about the fact that we can do a lot of healing work on our own time, within our own bodies and minds and hearts. That, yes, it's wonderful to be supported by someone else, to get counseling, to maybe be with a grief group, but there's so much we can do just by ourselves. I know that through the work that I've done, there's a lot of healing that can be done through going inside ourselves, through meditation, through mindfulness, going within and finding inside us where those emotions might be buried, where that sadness, that anger, that frustration, that confusion might be. And through the visualization process, through envisioning, going inside and envisioning, where in my body am I holding pain? Where am I holding anger? Where am I holding, what wants to be experienced and processed and healed and released within me? What is this hurt? What is this? And when we sit in the inquiry, self-inquiry, go inside, envision, where is my grief? And just through the art of paying attention, through the art of visualizing, we can be led to places within us through our inner vision or our sense perception. We can locate that pain, that anger, and we can start to do healing work about that, bring in light, ask some questions of that part of us. What does pain have to tell me? What does this anger have to tell me? I'm here for healing. How can I process through this? And by visualizing, by sitting with it, by self-inquiry, by journaling, by talking to someone that's a spiritual practitioner, we can do a lot of work to overcome the burdens of the heart, the burdens that come with loss and the grieving process by doing our inner work. So I just wanted to end with that. We are right at the end of time. And so if anyone wants to get support with healing, you can find Michael and I. We're both part of the thesatyacenter, and we are practitioners. And you can email us at growingedgelive@gmail.com. And we would love to support you or help you find the support you need on your grieving journey. So Michael Benjamin, thank you so much for being here today. And I appreciate you. I love you very much. And we'll see you next week with our guests, Stowe Good. That's Karen Good and Stowe Daly. They're a beautiful duo. They're musicians, and they're going to be sharing their light and their music and their songs with us. So thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you to New Thought Media Network, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.